Hi everybody, Alchemist Lion here, and it's time for part 2 of my Pathing and Block Off series. Today, we're going to look at what is Block Off? So this is an example of Block Off that we all know. It's 4 walls, metal, all upgraded of course, set up like this with a cone. And then, essentially, you just do this over and over again in the areas that you don't want the husks to path. And for every tile you want a husk to path differently, you need to have 3 points of blockage, 4 if they're nature or nature smashers. And that's kind of the fundamental principles that people have been utilizing. But it doesn't always work. There's situations that come up where somebody copies the build exactly, and then it doesn't work. There's also examples where people are using way less or different material, even different tiers, and it's working just as successfully. So that's what I'm just going to do, is I'm just going to illustrate some of these things. Now I'm going to break this down to the very basics, because this is something that gets overlooked, and it really shouldn't, because this could make a big difference. This is probably where a lot of Block Off is failing. And it's that walls are directional. Not consistently where you would notice it, but it can matter. So for example, we have this wall here, this metal wall. This is the front side. This is the side that you want the husks to see, because this is the outside of the wall. If you look at the other side, it's completely different. It doesn't look the same at all. Where there's bolts on this side, it's not on this side. So what happens is, if you have all your Block Off facing the same way, it doesn't matter which side it is, the husks will register that all consistently. They'll see that all as the same sort of Block Off, and that will be like one tick against them where they're not going to want to break through. If you change this and have one this side, so you were placing like a build here, then you hopped over and did it here, and then hopped over and did it here. I don't know why, but trust me, people do. You'll have this point where, yes, it's registering all as Block Off, but if for any reason there's a weakness or anything that lures the husks this way, this wall here now becomes a target. Now, if their natural path is right here, you probably get away with doing that because they're not registering that as much of as a way, because they have to walk a tile to get over to that weak spot. So that's why you can get away with it sometimes too. But it is a weak spot if it's not built all uniform. So you have to flip your builds. And that's the other thing. People's edits, you can watch somebody place it forward and like, okay, so look at the amp in place. But if you have them flipped, that doesn't really work. So you really have to pay attention, and you have to know what each side looks at. So that's kind of what I was trying to do over here, to kind of get you an idea. So low walls and high walls in the back. So this left side is the back side. That's where you don't want the husks to see. And you'll notice the low walls are really easy to tell because it just has that barbell in here, that little one wood going horizontally across where all the other ones are vertically, where the front side won't have that. On the walls, it's a little more subtle because you still have these patches and this leaf that you over here. It just, the inside of the wall has 2 leaves, the outside has 1. Brick is really tough. The only way I can tell the brick is on the roof. On the right side, if it's 2 pieces, that's the inside. And if the right side has more pieces, that's the outside. And it's the same with the big walls. See, the outside has 3 on the right, and the inside has 2 on the right. Then you take a look at the metal, and metal is probably way easier. These are backwards. This is the inside, that's the inside, and then this is the outside, and you can really tell with those nuts and bolts. Now we're going to take a look at it with Tier 2. So you'll start to notice that some of these become a little bit more harder to tell. So in Tier 2, the wood, the inside is actually being built before the outside, which I find is kind of interesting. The outside kind of looks more like scaffolding, where the inside only has a little part showing still. The brick like it's almost indistinguishable. It's really in the dip. The dip on this side, on the right side. If it dips to the right, that's the inside. If it dips to the left there, that's the outside. Metal, again, is one of the easiest to tell the difference on, up until this point at least. So you have the scaffolding, that's the inside, just like that. And the screws, just like before, are on the outside, or the divots. They're all on the outside. So now we have tier 3 wood, and this one looks weird, yeah. So the insides, for the big one, it's the screw in the middle, that's the inside. If there's no screw in the middle, that's the outside. The low walls, the outside looks like the inside almost. It's weird, it's like half done, that's the outside. The inside piece is the actual full piece. So that's a bit of a weird one. And then, oh, I didn't even do the... Brick is just tough. If that sticky out piece is on the left, that's the inside. If that sticky out piece is actually sticking in on the right, that's the outside wall. You can also look at kind of like this brick and like that brick. It's basically that top layer, that's the real way, but yeah, I was just trying to look at what would be the most indicator. So out would be off, in would be on, like that's where you want them going towards, is where it's in. Now metal, it just gets a little complicated, if I'm not lying. But I'm just looking at this piece. So this is the inside if it's on the right. That little square is the outside if it's on the left. That would be the only way you could really tell, because they look exactly alike. Look at the low walls. Like, they look exactly alike. These were reversed. So this is the inside wall, which has the 3 parts. The outside wall is the 2 parts. But yet they look so similar that it would be really hard to tell. But direction can have an impact. It doesn't always if they're not really looking to break through it. But if they are, it will definitely show them the way. This is also a reason why some TP loops or smasher bridges might be failing, is because husks, if they see the inside, they are more apt to break those. So if you have it like a TP loop going on and the mini boss is breaking pieces, it might be due to this. I find especially around that amp setup when you're building, they want all the pieces on the outside versus having the inside being shown outwards. And again, you can't say, oh, face the amp and do it, because your builds can rotate. And that can change things. Now, I used in my example metal, because I said you use metal, of course. But do you really have to? We have this real, like, issue, I guess, from the start of this game, where we apply real-world dynamics into the game. So we use our logic that would happen in the real world and, you know, put it here. So of course, metal would be the strongest and most resilient, and therefore the best to use for pathing, because they'll see it as a harder time to hit through. But when actuality is, when they actually determine their pathing, they're not looking at how hard it is to hit, they're just looking at if it's there. So you can use any material, wood, brick, or metal, to path. The only difference is, if they're breaking it, how quick does it fall? And that's the real differentiator. So that's why people like metal, is because it's harder to break, so therefore it won't fall as fast. So if you have a propane go off and accidentally, damage this, it's going to buy you some time, because it's going to not just vanish right away. However, if you have wood and propane goes off, a little less forgiving. But that being said, you can make entire block off using wood, and as long as nothing's going over to it, which good block off won't, you can get away with it. So now if the health of the material doesn't matter, and you can use wood, brick, or metal and get the exact same result with your pathing, does the tier matter? And the answer is no. You can use tier 1 wood, tier 1 brick, and tier 1 metal and get the exact same results with your pathing as you would using tier 3 metal. Now, again, just like using wood versus metal, using tier 1 versus tier 3 is, also equally as risky, if not more so risky, because it's drastically reduced health. So if anything does decide to break it, it's going to fade fast. And once something's broken, and this is something, once the AI starts to break something, it changes all of their mindset to kind of want to go help, especially the closer you are to that center spot in the pathing into their natural terrain. If you get somebody on the far side, like an assassin breaking something, all it's going to do is make all the other assassins want to break that too. But yeah, that main area is in the middle. That's where you don't want sensitivities to happen. So you can do it. Do I recommend it? Probably not. But I recommend trying it. I've done it even in Twine, and it works insanely funnily so. Just because, again, you're thinking real-world dynamics, there's no way that this will deter a husk the same that this would. When actuality is, it really doesn't make that much of a difference. Oh man. Yeah, I can't believe 116 trap durability and this stuff is just holding up. I like it.
Oh yeah.
Blow it up and add more darts to the mix. Go ahead, dude. I like that.
Oh. Looked crazy when the tiles just drop all at once.
And now for the last part on just the walls in general. If the material doesn't matter and the tier level doesn't matter, does what kind of wall really matter? And the short answer is no. You can get the same results from pathing with these low walls that you can with these big walls. And I've been doing this for some time, and I know some people have picked up on it. I noticed there's been a few comments on some of the videos commenting on my low walls, but it is a fact that the actual building health doesn't determine where they're going to path. It's all on them just registering that this is a blocked path and makes them want to alternate. Now you might be thinking, I use increased build health traps, so I know that this is kind of false because they register that. And yeah, they do. They will register almost any trap. And I've said this for a long time, especially in my videos. Husks register traps. It almost counts as like another piece of block off. And that trap is doing it. Now, could and does the building health make a difference? It could be another dynamic. But it's not the only dynamic at work when we're putting the traps down. Putting any trap on a wall will make the husks think differently about that wall. And the type of trap too can also impact it. But those are things that you need to play with, because I don't have the specifics. I would just be guessing, and I don't think that's a good way to post. But I just want to let you know what is really needed and what has flexibility. And these builds, the type of build, how you build, there's a lot of playroom that we aren't really utilizing. So I covered the walls. Now there's two other dynamics that you can utilize in block off that we're going to touch base on. So the first thing, and it's the one that's really utilized a lot in block off, is this, the cone. And I speculate that this actually might be being overutilized to the spot where it's not necessary for what people are trying to accomplish. And if anything, it could be hindering the build. That being said, I still utilize the cones in specific areas, but they're not my primary tool for block off. For example, I see this a lot. You have your walls and then you have cones all orientated like this. The husks are not registering these at all because they can simply do this. Yet, people are utilizing them in that fashion. The best way would be to lift these up and give one smooth straight line that they're not going to be able to walk on. That being said, you have to watch out and make sure that they're not pathing up on the back end, because what will happen is they can start using these as paths and going up and walking on areas that you're not expecting. I've been guilty of putting ramps and cones and places where I'm just doing that automatic response or automatic build. You know, you just kind of almost like 90s in Battle Royale, you just set it up instantly. And it's like just a primary reflex. And then once I'm running it, I'm noticing they're walking up on stuff. The other thing is, as I make loud banging noises in my ear, cones, ramps, these draw the ire of smashers. Ramps more so than cones, because ramps are kind of glitched. I've seen lots of people do some cool things with these, but I'm not going to show. But look, I run up and I hop. Husks register that hop, and they do not like it. Generally, that means that they're going to aggro on this and beat it, because you're usually using these to path them up somewhere you want them to go. But that hop is why they won't do it, because they're not going to go super slow and do that. They're walking at their normal pace. And you look, every time I go up that stair rail, I hop. Where if I'm going up the ramp, and this is why ramps work exponentially better, there's no hop. I can do that over and over again, and there's no hop. Where if I go up here, hop. But both of them, regardless of that, husks don't like, and especially in areas like this with stairs, when you put things like this, or you put like a ramp, they want to break that. And a lot of times it makes their AI kind of target it. So a lot of places people are putting their ramps are actually luring the husks in there, and the only saving grace is the fact that they're using the walls to kind of counteract that. But the actual ramp isn't doing anything. Instead, I suggest a floor. Now, I know some people get this, but other people will like kind of question it, because again, we're looking at the building health, and people think, oh, this is like, you know, 1/4 or 1/3 of a block off. It doesn't really count. You need like so many floors. This actually does the job, the same job that a cone does, with none of the negative effects. It has none of the negative connotations of them walking up on it. It doesn't make husks targeted. If anything, a lot of times if you see people using smasher guides, they're using floors because they less aggro the floors. So before I close out, what I'll do is I'll just show some examples of some of the block off that I have in Twine, so you can kind of see what I'm doing and using these principles in my builds. Alright, so we're going to end this video now. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy this information and it's helpful and can help give your game a little bit more flair and variety, because that's really what I'm doing. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel on this. I'm just saying that there's some options that maybe some of us aren't taking a look at, and they're fun to explore. So yeah, hope you enjoy. Thanks again for your time. Have yourself a great day. I'll catch you around.